All right. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, noon, or evening, depending on where you are joining us from. I'm Dr. Bushra Anjum, and in my day job, I'm a Director of Data Science at Doximity. As a volunteer, I'm the Standing Committee's Chair for ACM Women, and also the host for this ACM Women Celebrating Technology Leaders series. The series is designed to demystify careers in tech industry, especially for women. We discuss career options, career opportunities, and career challenges. In each episode, we invite women leaders who have been successfully architecting their careers in computing. We celebrate their stories and learn from their experiences. Today, we are focusing on the office of the CTO and those who have made it there and have put together a fantastic panel for you. Before talking to our panelists, a few logistical reminders. I will be facilitating the discussion for the first 45 minutes. Some of these questions are taken from those submitted by you at the time of registration. The final 15 minutes are for live Q&A with our panelists. You can put forth your questions by typing them into the Q&A window and submitting. Feel free to write in and send your questions throughout the discussion. Thank you for spending the next hour with us here. We will make every effort to make it worth your time. Today, we have with us Rebecca, Dr. Parsons, CTO of Thoughtworks. We have Janice Zankas, VP Technology Strategy and Innovation for Social Impact, Office of the CTO at HP. We have Rama Karaju, VP Enterprise AI and Automation at NVIDIA and ex-CTO at IBM Watson AI Operations. Our fourth panelist, Saima Mushtaq, is unfortunately not able to join because she had a family emergency. One of her close family members is in the hospital right now, and she and her family is certainly in our thoughts and prayers right now. All right, coming to our panelists. You will do a better job at introducing yourself than I ever can. So please tell us something about your educational background, career journey, and how you got to your current role. We can start with Rebecca.
Okay. Well, I started programming when I was 13 in an algebra class, and I fell in love with it immediately. I actually got impatient with high school and dropped out of high school to start university a year early. I went to Bradley University to receive a BS in both economics and computer science. And then I went to work for about, I guess it would be 7 years, and then decided that going to graduate school part-time was not going to cut it because I really did want to earn my PhD. And so I went back to graduate school full-time at Rice University, completed my master's and PhD there at Rice. I spent some time in Los Alamos, which is actually quite formative. I got the chance both to work with people in my discipline, but in part because my security clearance took so long to come through, I ended up getting heavily involved in computational biology and the Human Genome Project, which also introduced me to the true joy of interdisciplinary research. I really enjoyed even those conversations when it was very clear that we were using the same words and meaning different things by them and having to sort through the vocabulary problems. I spent time at the University of Central Florida as a professor and decided that I had been right earlier in my career when I said I never wanted to be an assistant professor. And that's when I joined Thoughtworks. That was in December of 1999. So I'm one of the people with this amount of gray hair who actually got to party on December 31st, 1999, because I wasn't mission critical. I just started on December 14th. I became CTO in 2007 and have maintained my interest in artificial intelligence, evolutionary computation, as well as programming languages and parallel and distributed systems.
Fantastic. I myself have a PhD and I started in academia, but ended up in industry. So I could see some parallels there and I hear you. Janice, please.
Well, hello, everybody. So I'm Janice Sankis, and I work at HPE, but I started my career at HP. And for those of you that don't know, HP spun out multiple companies in the last several years, and HPE, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, is one of them. I have spent my entire career at this wonderful company, coming right out of college, where I went to Purdue University and studied computer science and also industrial management, and then later obtained my MBA from Santa Clara University. I have had a wonderful career in a lot of different functional areas, starting out in engineering for several years, moving into product management, getting a taste of product marketing, moving into support engineering and services, back into engineering, and then moving into some of the functions that are at a more centralized area. I had a unique opportunity to actually create the role that I'm in currently, and that is part-time tech for good, tech for social impact, and the other part-time technology strategy and planning within the office of the CTO. And so it's in the course of the tech for good, tech for social impact work that we partner very, very closely with our research labs to identify opportunities for tackling big, hairy, difficult, challenging problems that could use technology to advance and make leaps ahead. And that sometimes feeds new projects that we pilot and develop and test and validate in the office of the CTO.
Fantastic. You started the Tech for Good direction for the company. That's fantastic. Rama?
Hello, everybody. My name is Rama Kraju. I studied electronics engineering back in India. Like many immigrants, I came here to get graduate studies. I did my master's in computer science and joined research earlier on, which is where I spent a good chunk of my career at IBM Research and IBM, leading to me becoming an IBM fellow in 2019. Throughout my career, I have worked on a lot of things related to applying AI for solving many real-world problems. Most recently, I've joined NVIDIA to drive enterprise AI and automation initiatives here. Quite excited to be here. I have, along the way, went and got an MBA as well from Stern School of Business. And I very much enjoy solving real-world problems by applying cutting-edge AI technologies. And that has been the theme more or less throughout my career, both at IBM and now at NVIDIA.
Congratulations on your new position at NVIDIA.
Thank you.
So one question that has been submitted by multiple audience members here is that yours is one of the highest technology posts that one could think about when they're thinking about the ladder in the tech industry. What does your day-to-day look like? What kind of problems are you solving? Is it technical, people management, all of the above? We can go in reverse order, Rama.
Yeah, absolutely all of the above. I mean, first of all, I think as a leader, if you want to have the team follow, your guidance and achieve, your vision, and you have to have, first of all, a good vision that people get excited about. So for that, and to set that good vision, you have to know the domain and the area that you are trying to make an impact in. So that having that technical depth and prowess, I would say is an absolute must for a CTO or even any leader. I would say it brings a lot of credibility. Then, of course, you bring all of the rest of your people management and soft skills, and it doesn't have to be that you actually have people are managing people to do that. As a CTO or as a technical leader or as a people manager. First and foremost is leadership and influence, and you have to be able to energize people, motivate, and get them excited about the mission and the vision. Then naturally, the team members will go beyond to help you accomplish that mission and vision. As a CTO, especially, you have to be, very much on top of what are the latest trends, what are some of the industry shifting technologies that are shaping up that you should be exploring and experimenting and seeing how you can apply and take advantage of those to advance the state of whatever product or project that you're driving. So staying in touch with the industry trends and reading a lot about what's going on and following up and what's the latest is a critical aspect of being a visionary CTO or even a leader, I would say.
So I'll just add to that I think that all of those day-to-day activities are pretty common across a function like the Office of the CTO, where you are centralized typically and look to, on behalf of the employees of the company for direction or guidance around emerging technology areas. So in addition to, I would say it's really, really important from a people management viewpoint to think about leadership broadly, as Rama talks about, in terms of influencing, sharing your vision, sharing your excitement, sharing your lessons learned, because not all projects are winners. Sometimes you'll test and validate and find that that's not the right time, or a project that is missing something that isn't suitable to go to market. So those are all activities that come with the job in working in a centralized function like the Office of the CTO. In terms of my day-to-day world, I do spend a lot of time with customers. And sometimes it's customers who are visionaries themselves, who have an idea or want to share feedback or share inputs or be a sounding board, so advisory councils, for example. Other times it's going out and seeking out particular customer environments where you want to test a hypothesis or think about an opportunity and really understand an environment that an industry is developing. And that leads to kind of requirements planning and technology strategy, visioning, ideation, I think, as Rebecca mentioned as well. It's all part of kind of developing ideas and bringing those ideas forward and then testing them to see if they have any kind of market or commercial viability. So that's what I would add to around the day-to-day work that I do.
Rebecca, you're muted.
There was a dog barking in the background. So one thing that I would add, I'm the CTO of a pure services company. And so that is a bit different in that we don't have a product that we're developing for our customers. We're developing our customers' products for them. And so I think there are a couple of ways that the role is different, because the vision that I'm asked to produce and the technology strategy that I'm asked to champion is more to do with how do we get ready for our clients discovering these new technologies and understand enough about them so that, our financial services client can apply it over there and our retail client can apply it over there. And I guess one thing that I would add, and again, I think part of this is partly related to being a pure services company. I chose not to impose my vision without consulting. We have over 12,000 Thoughtworkers worldwide. They're the ones who are working with our clients on a day-to-day basis. And so I feel a big part of my job is to create an environment where individual Thoughtworkers feel like they can come to me with an idea and come and say, hey, this cool new thing is happening over here. And, this is how I think it can go. And so there's definitely the environment of creating space for people to feel confident that they can bring their ideas forward. Again, I spend a fair amount of my time working with our internal leadership teams, trying to help them with that mapping of this is what's happening in the technology landscape. And this is how it impacts our clients. I also spend a lot of time on the speaking circuit doing much the same. it's interesting because I always felt that was a core part of my job, that as CTO, I was kind of the technology spokesperson. And my CEO actually doesn't think that's necessarily a core part of the job. Yes, to speak to, analysts and the press at times as the more formal spokesperson, but the fact that I'm up on stages to him isn't a core part. And I think that's an interesting debate that we still need to have. But for those of you considering the career, there's at least one very influential CEO who said, no, you don't have to, you don't necessarily have to be the one up on a stage, even though there are CTOs that do that.
I absolutely love the diversity of responses here and the areas that you covered. Thank you so much. Coming towards the theme of the talk, which is resilience and dealing with adversity. So resilience requires an adjustment from adversity or major life changes. Would you like to share a time in your career when you had to face adversity and how you overcame it? We can start from Rebecca, go in the reverse order.
Okay. I think adversity comes in many forms, but what I want to focus on is an incident early in my career. I had signs that the place that I was working was just not the right home. I was made the manager. That meant I had visibility to all the salaries. And even though I buy the argument that sometimes managers make less than the people who work for them, when I asked what this guy could do that I couldn't do, the answer literally was, well, we didn't think you'd notice. Yes. It's like, how can I not notice? That number is bigger than my number. And so I had signs like that, but what really settled it for me, we were at a client, literally standing outside the client's conference room. And he said to me, my boss, if you are asked this question, you will give this answer. And I said, no, I won't. That's not true. And he said, I don't care if it's not true. If you get asked this question, you will give this answer. And we're having this argument outside their conference room. They're in there already. And it's like, okay, I've got a decision to make. And so what I told him was, the best I will do for you is if they ask the question, you can give that answer, but I am not. Fortunately for me, because I'm not sure I could have gone through with my end of the bargain if they had asked the question and he had lied to them. They didn't ask the question. But to me, that was such a violation of trust with me, with the client. And I think a lot about how I handled it that day. I don't know that I could have done anything different. But I also got lucky because I got home from that business trip and my acceptance letter to Rice University to go back to graduate school full time was in the mail. And so I had a way to get out, but I did, when the VP of engineering asked me the question, why are you going? Well, I said, well, there's this, I'm going to Rice University. However, there's also this, you need to know these things. I'm not proud of the fact that I got a man fired. But I think I'm a firm believer now that leaders cannot solve problems that they don't know about. And he could have the VP could have chosen several different routes. The route that he chose was to get rid of him, which told me that there was some kind of history there. But why I think that's a resilience story is it's important to think about the consequences, but at some point you might be in a situation where there is no good answer. There was no good answer for me at the age of 26 years old, standing outside that door, you know, facing that situation. And the thing that I clung to is I am not going to violate my moral compass by lying to somebody. And then I'm going to do something to hopefully make sure that he never puts anybody in a situation like that again.
Thank you for sharing that. And at the age of 26, that's a lot of grit there. Thank you for sharing that, Rebecca. Janice?
So there are lots of stories for the course of my career of things that didn't always kind of go the way you would anticipate when you took on a new role or a new project, for example. I'll select one to share with you, and that is when I was first promoted to become an engineering director of an R&D team. I was recruited from the executive team from a part of our business that was focused on commercial products. And I was recruited to come over to an enterprise group, which has some very different expectations and needs for customers. But it was a deeply technical team, and I was coming in as an outsider. So the team was, I'll say, kind of inbred in that there was promotion from within. There were leaders in the team that had been in the group for many, many years. The demographics of the group were non-diverse, and I was coming in kind of not checking any of those boxes. So I was hazed. They had their own internal candidate that they had selected to become their next director, and I wasn't that person. I had I think little gifts on my desk of, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, read this book, you might understand us better, little things like that. I had resistance along the way. And then in a business climate situation, it was a period of time when there was economic downturn, and part of the group was downsized and outsourced for the very first time in our company. So there was a lot of emotional trauma as well. So here I am, the leader of this group. Not really accepted, people questioning where I came from and how I have the skills and qualities and qualifications to lead it. And I realized I needed to step up and win them over, but also to achieve what the executive ranks were looking for me to do. That was a classic lesson on management of change. And suddenly I became a student of management of change pretty fast. And thankfully I had a lot of sponsorship and mentorship to help me really learn the effective techniques around building a vision with the team, communicating that vision, putting in the reinforcement mechanisms around measurement and rewards and recognition, and operationalizing a vision, and creating energy and trust with the team that together we could change the trajectory and achieve new things together that the executive ranks were looking for. And even acceptance within the team of the fact that they were being looked to for change was part of the process of change for themselves, right? Understand and accept that message that they weren't performing in the direction that the management team wanted them to change. So I will say that it was really, really hard and a lot of work. And it took a long time to gain the trust. I actually did have to make some tough changes and remove some people from my direct staff who just resisted and would not be open to thinking differently. That was adversity. But I will say, after working through that, and I think I spent 4 or 5 years in that role, it is one of the most formative experiences in my career. And some of it was painful, but in the end, it was very rewarding. And some of those colleagues of mine, whether they're still with the company or not, are people that I have, formed longstanding, professional relationships with, and have very fond memories of working through all these issues together.
I bet at the time when you started the change management, it would have been hard. All the resistance that you get, just because sometimes people are used to the way things are. They're not necessarily opposed to change. They are just comfortable where they are. Thank you for sharing that, Janice. Rama?
Yeah, I know. I have a lot of stories too. I'm trying to think which one, but I'll highlight one hopefully that really resonates with CTOs out there or aspirant CTOs out there. One of the things that in one of my roles that we had to do was we identified an area where we were going to build a product. It was going to be one of these in an entrenched space, but we identified some specific white spaces and gaps where AI and machine learning technologies can help. And we initiated that project as a product that we would build. But given that AI and ML really needs a lot of data and proof and validation and user feedback and all that to work, we knew that for us, and we were taking on the hard problems there to solve because this was already an entrenched space. And the reason why we were getting in, even starting a new product, is because we knew that with AI, we could make a difference, but it'll be a lot of hard work. And that's why nobody else was doing it. And we were starting it. So we, as a team, we knew that it's going to take a lot of hard work and iterations, working with customers, getting the feedback initially to see if this technology is at the level where it can be productized or not, if the kind of predictions that these models make are at the levels of accuracy that's needed for it to be productionized and all that. And we went, when we pitched the product, we pitched it to our management executive teams, product leaders, and said, don't put revenue pressures on this product because it's going to be very early stages. It's niche. We need to prove it out. And first, let's prove the technology before we build the full stack product. But sometimes what happens because of the pressures and such, the executives have to make decisions the other way without listening to the technical team. Right, certain platform decisions were made where you have to build on certain platforms and you have to get n number of customers in by the end of first 6 months of the project. And sometimes as a CTO, you're under this pressure to do the right thing for the product, but also at the same time, you have to do it within the context of the organization. And you give your opinion, you tell, and you try to influence. But at some point, if that's not heard or listened to because of whatever other pressures that your upline management has, you end up taking those risks. And as can be expected, the initial version of the product was too hard to install and had to go through multiple iterations, and there was a lot of frustration coming up, saying the quality was not there, and the product is not easy to use, and accuracy is not there, and all that. And so we had to go back, and as a CTO, I have to go back and also mention that it is because for all the reasons that we mentioned at the beginning of the project, it needs certain nurturing, it needs certain validation, it needs first proof before you build the full scale on a platform, this and that. But then by then already there are a lot of bruises and and such that come your way. So for me, the way I dealt with it, and the way that I would recommend for others thinking about who might be in these kind of situations is be more firm, and try to give your opinion earlier on, and see if you can influence it as much as possible earlier on. But if that's not possible, then you do your best and really bring the scope of what you are trying to accomplish down to the smallest level possible, so that you can still accomplish it in the whatever minutest feature function possible way first, and then improvise on it. Don't try to take everything at the same time and try to do it and end up in a situation where it doesn't work. So it's a lot of good lessons learned from that. And a couple of things, if I have to summarize from that, I would say is first, assess the risks, communicate the risks, articulate them. But if you still have to take those risks because of whatever situations, then you really bring the scope down to the level that you can still show something of value and then improve and iterate over time.
That's just such valuable lessons, both things that you said, that be firm in your opinion early on, and if certain decision or certain direction has to be taken because of the company-wide decisions, then bring the scope down to the smallest level possible. Thank you for sharing that. So when going through adverse situations, be it on the professional realm or the personal realm, how do you take care of yourself while going through a challenge? And I especially like this question as it was proposed because in October 10th was the World Mental Health Day. And so we would love your advice on dealing with difficult emotions and difficult situations. How do you take care of yourself? Anyone who would like to answer that, multiple answers, more than welcome.
Well, I'll jump in and say, I think, self-care is important, but it's different for everybody. So for me, I like to get out and take a long walk. I'm also an extrovert, so I like to talk stream of consciousness to my friends, my colleagues. I will find someone where I can talk through what's going on, even if they don't have anything to say back. Oftentimes I can help kind of rationalize and think through what's bothering me. So those are two things I do. Others may, want to go get a massage, may want to read a great book, or, I don't know, I'll open that to the others on the call here.
Well, definitely +1 to the long walk. I would be more likely to talk to my plants than to a friend or a colleague, because I do tend to process things much more internally. But having recognized that that's not how everybody else does things, one of the things I try to do with the people I'm working with or mentoring, I call it being a steam vent. And if people come to me and they want to talk something through, they just want to vent, the rules are, it's just like steam going through a vent. It dissipates on the other side. If there is something that I hear that I would really like to do something about, I will ask permission. If it's not granted, I don't do a thing. And I did have somebody take that option once and it drove me nuts. But it was about 4 months later that I heard through the other channel that the problem had been solved. And it's like, yes, the system worked. But for many people, it is important to talk about it, but in a safe place. And to me, I do have a couple of people that I do confide in. And I've learned from them about creating those safe spaces.
Such an important and thoughtful tip there, Janice. Yeah, I mean, I would, vote for that, going for a long walk any day as well. Really helps clear my mind. I would do yoga, hit the gym, play with our dog, take him for a walk. All these things help. I think the most important thing is that if each one of us at any level in our jobs, we all have stresses. We all deal with many pressures on a daily basis. The important thing is to first understand the trigger points and be mindful of what those trigger points are. Often transitions can be those trigger points because you've explicitly made that transition, or you were forced to make that transition, whatever that case may be. You're in a new place, you're trying to learn new environment, adjust to it, and you are trying to prove yourself in that new environment. And so you're processing a lot of things. And often that becomes the trigger point, and that kind of manifests in in many things. Maybe you end up taking out frustration at home, or that you're working such long hours and your body starts to take a toll. So just knowing those trigger points is, first of all, very important. Once you realize that, oops, I'm getting to that point, I better do something about it, then you find what works for you, as other panelists said, and as Janice was also saying, whatever works for you at that point in time, taking deep breaths or meditating, yoga, going for walks, dancing, playing with dogs, anything, whatever works for you. But the thing is to take that bit of time off from those things on a daily basis and keep your quiet time, self-time in a day and reflect. And that helps a lot. Slowing down helps a lot.
Such great advice. And slowing down, that reminds me, whenever I'm in an extremely stressful position or something is not going as it should, I need a system reset. I need a shutdown and a restart. So for my shutdown, I do something like extremely silly, like play a Facebook game like Farmville or something. How are my apple trees doing? Where are my chickens? That gives me like a complete shutdown and then a restart. And then when you look back at problems, you start seeing a few ways that you might have missed, or things might have cooled down, so you're not as emotionally charged as you were before that, at that period of like slowing down and reflection. Thank you for sharing all those wonderful, wonderful pieces of advice. So since the position that you are in is akin to goals and accomplishments, sometimes achieving a goal or realizing an accomplishment, it can take a curved pathway. It may seem that you are taking one step forward, two steps back. Have you ever faced that situation in your career, Janice?
Yes, I have. And this is a time when I left leading several hundred engineering person organization and moved into a role where I had no direct reports. So it was something that took a lot of careful consideration, but my leader, my manager, basically said, you know, for your career to advance, you need to have more visibility. And I don't mean just visibility like, you know, people know your name, but like you need to, your impact and your contributions need to be better understood by higher level leaders in the organization. And of course, this is the time when our company was, you know, 300,000 people large. So it was hard to be a rising star in an organization when I was working in an area that was pretty low level, technically speaking. So I had to kind of put my faith in my manager's advice and take on a role that had much greater involvement and interaction and contribution to the general manager, business unit leader perspectives. And it was fun, it was interesting, but it was scarier than heck because it was me and there was not a team standing behind me holding me up. It was a different subject matter that I was an expert on from a prior role. And it was something that I had the opportunity to add a lot of contribution to, but it felt like I just took two steps back. I just walked away from a lot of budgetary responsibility, a lot of people management responsibility to it's just me. And I felt like, oh my gosh, my career has just spiraled the other way. When in fact, after about 3 years in this role, I was able to make a significant business level contribution, and my boss was right. I was then on the trajectory to be ready for a vice president's role. So I had to have faith. I had to, you know, do my best and not rely on a large team behind me, and recognize that it seems like it's a curved path and I might be actually going back when in fact it was actually the next step for me.
Great story. Rebecca, Rama, anything you would like to add? Anything from your personal experience?
Well, I want to amplify what Janice was saying about that, the path. And, you know, it might feel like you're going backwards or sideways, but it is just the next step. Many people think that anybody who ends up in academia, you know, that was that. You had the goal, you marched the path. I worked for a heavy equipment manufacturer. I worked for a semiconductor company. I worked for a telecommunications company before I went back to graduate school. And then I went to do my postdoc, you know, and I wasn't at all sure that I wanted to be a professor, but I unfortunately listened to people who thought I would like it. I think they would have liked it, and they, you know, were kind of projecting onto me. But what it did to some extent is it put me in a position first to understand some of those other truths about how important it is to have alignment on what constitutes success. You know, academia has a long history of this is what success looks like. And that didn't match my model. And so what might have looked like, well, that was a significant detour, really wasn't, because there were things that I had to learn. And I think that put me in a position where I was better able to take on the responsibilities that I now have as CTO. You know, I sometimes tell people there is no green grass. You know, I've worked for the government, I've worked for a nonprofit, I've worked for a startup, I've worked, you know, list the sectors. I've done it even before I started working for a services company where you get to work in lots of different domains. And I think that academic experience was a good part of that path, because I'm in a position where I can help people tease apart what it is that they really want. And so I saw those turns as just things that ended up with me being in a better place.
Thank you for sharing that. As you were saying that, I was remembering, and it's I believe I saw it on some TV show. I can't remember it, but the line went something like this: that every detour, every dead end, dark alley was actually, it may look like a curved path, but it was actually a straight path that was meant to lead you to where you are today. So yeah, thank you for sharing that sentiment. Rama, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think it's just building on that thought that you just shared, Bushra. It's really up to the individual to make something out of whatever comes their way. Every experience will teach you something. You will learn from it. You have the opportunity to grow from it and take it to your next role. The question is, are you really in the frame of mind to accept things that way? That's what matters, really. Yes, of course, I have made some changes. And some of them, you know, specifically, I can think of one that didn't actually work out. But what that did to me is to get me out of my comfort zone. First, I took that role thinking that it would be something. It turned out to be something else. And the role itself was disappearing. But it got me out of my comfort zone, and it then landed me in a place that really propelled me into doing, you know, my best work that led to many awards, both internally and externally, in the space of AI. And I probably wouldn't have, you know, gotten that opportunity to do that work if I hadn't took that small detour, which actually didn't work out. But then, you know, that's an episode from my own career path. I can't really, you know, generalize that and say, therefore, take risks, and that may not work out, and that may lead to something else. Maybe it will, maybe it won't for some folks. But the point is, you can make lemonade out of a bad lemon any day. It really depends on your frame of mind and how your perspective is towards a given role or a given problem. There is no such a thing as not up to my, you know, alley. This is not what I want to do. If you look deep enough, everything has an opportunity to you know, take on that challenge. Every problem that comes your way gives you the opportunity to grow. And, you know, there is so much work that needs to be done to advance that and to expand the pie, instead of just saying that I'm stuck with this piece of pie. So it's really in our mind and in our perspective, I would say.
Yeah, I just love that you say, if you look deep enough, you can find opportunity in any challenge, and then just working on expanding the pie rather than sticking to your piece of pie. Wonderfully said. Thank you, Rama. And Rama, a follow-up question to you, and it goes back to what you said earlier in our discussion, that leadership and alignment and having a vision and making people kind of come around that is kind of one of the key responsibilities that you have. In your experience, how do you lead people when they have conflicting agendas? Have you ever faced that situation? How did you deal with that?
Quite often. I mean, that's part of what we all have to deal with and learn to come out of it and navigate it. I would like to call out one small story here that was narrated to me and my class. by one of the professors in New York University, Stern School of Business. And so I give him the credit for this story, Professor Seth Freeman. It was a conflict and negotiation class in my MBA class that I was taking. So one day, this professor loved having students come out to the front stage and enact things out. So one day he brought an orange and gave it to 2 students. He told each student something. We didn't know what it was. The rest of us were sitting in the class and observing the drama being played out. So one guy says, this is my orange. I saw it first. I need to have it. The other guy says, this is my orange. I picked it up first, therefore it's mine. And they both were, pulling at it. It goes on for quite some time. Both were making arguments about why they must have the orange. Finally, after some time, the mediator comes and says, ask the first person, why do you want that orange? The person says, I'm hungry, I need to eat that. I need to eat that orange. He asked the second person, why do you want that orange? He says, I'm making a marmalade, I need the peel. So what it took, both could have what they were asking for. They didn't have to snatch. All they needed to do was to ask themselves what their interests were. And we get in at workplace too, a lot of these kind of situations where people come at it from different agendas. And often we think, we don't take the time to actually talk and ask them what their interests were, where they're coming from, and assume a lot of things. And that's where the conflict arises. So this, I remember this episode, this story, and I'll probably remember it for the rest of my life. Every time I'm in a conflicting situation, I think of this and say, let me actually have a one-on-one conversation with that person or that team to better understand and listen to them first, without being judgmental. Ask them what their interests are. And 99% of the time, actually, if you spend the time to do that, you can actually understand their perspective better and come out of it with some kind of a creative solution to get out of that conflicting situation. And it may not even be a conflict. It was just a bunch of assumptions that were being made on both sides that just could be resolved. So yes, we all face these conflicting situations, but I think the key thing here is to have that willingness to listen, have that empathy, understand the other person's interests, and be well prepared with a lot of options and think about what are their reactions and responses, and be prepared and really deal with it calmly. If you go in with the right attitude, with empathy, and not come across as, this is something that, I want to get done, this is my pie kind of thing, you can often resolve a lot of conflicts in teams.
I just loved that orange story. I'm going to quote that in some of my work as well. Thank you, Rama, for sharing
Professor
that.
Seth Freeman.
As a Professor Seth Freeman, absolutely. I might drop him an email later on and said, sir, your wisdom is being carried on.
Yes, by his students.
Okay, yes. All right, taking some of the audience questions as well. So becoming a CTO, well, one option of becoming a CTO is that you found a company, and then of course, as a founding member, you might be the CTO of the company. But we are talking about the other route, when you actually rise to the ranks and take that position. So an audience member has asked, what projects or events in your early or mid-career helped you become a CTO? Anyone who would like to take that?
Well, I can start, but again, I do want to point out, being in a peer services company is a different kind of CTO role. But for me, it was being able to demonstrate the ability to talk about the power of technology in a way that non-technologists could understand. Because, and I think this holds across the different categories of CTOs, you're there at that table because you understand technology. But most of the people, if not all of the rest of the people on that table, don't understand that technology. And it does no good for you to be at that table if you can't articulate what are the opportunities because of some new technology advance, or what are the threats, or what are the competitive threats that are coming about as a result of particular technology. And so I actually think one of the more valuable things was the fact that, in part because I'm a math geek, I became fascinated by economics. And so I did the double major, which put me in a marketing class, which put me in a business administration class. And so I started with some level of understanding, and then, threw out some of those other, twists and turns along my career path. I learned kind of the system behind business. And that gave me the vocabulary to be able to explain, this is why this top technology is important, not just because it's cool technology. I'll go talk to my fellow geeks about that. But what you need to know is this is what can happen. And to me, one of the big differences I've seen in CTOs who are successful in multiple environments is that ability to articulate, this is why you, Mr. COO or Ms. CFO, should care about what I'm about to say, and put it in their terms. There's a part of me that believes that if we were better at that, we might not have had CDOs. Because what is a CDO but somebody who understands how to bring the power of the new data technology and marry that with the business. But unfortunately, many of us haven't cracked that code yet.
Thank you for sharing that. Rama, Janice, would you like to add anything?
I think Rebecca did such a wonderful job. I don't have anything to add.
All right, sure, absolutely. Cool. So another question is that it's approaching resilience in a slightly different way. That how do you stay relevant and resilient in this changing technology scenario, especially as you aim to climb up the ladder and be in a leadership position?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll add a couple of comments. So first of all, I think it's important to be self-aware and be a student of lifelong learning. So regularly keeping your eye out on what's going on around your world or around your industry, outside of your industry, around the bubble that you might find yourself within. And oftentimes signals you'll find from other industries or other things that actually have implications or opportunities for the area that you're currently practicing in. So that's how you can stay relevant as things around you are changing. I think studying and talking to customers and those who use your products and services is another piece of that. So really understanding what they're trying to do and what their challenges are, help you start to think about how you need to change and how you can be prepared for the changes that are coming your way. And I'm sure the others, Rebecca and Rama, probably have other things to add to that.
Yeah, being a lifelong student is actually one of the most important things for you to be a technical leader. Whatever we learned in school is changing so much every day. And if you hire some, new computer science engineers or machine learning engineers, they know so much more than you. So part of you being a leader is, first of all, acknowledging that people bring different skills, but at the same time, and you may not be at the same level as the folks who graduated from college, who have all the latest technologies and tools at their tips and disposal, but you have to be you have to be very fast at catching up things, and but you bring in your experience. That's what you bring in as to the table, right? I mean, you may not be up to date on everything, but you bring in your experience and you ask the right questions and you connect the dots from this to that and that point to this point, and that's how you stay relevant. But other than that, what I do, I follow some of the leading voices in the area of my interest, researchers, and follow their papers, and I'm on the program committees for several of the technical conferences, IEEE, ACM, kind of things, so that I get to review papers, the latest ones, And that is a great way to stay updated because then you're getting to read what's coming up, and that keeps you updated. And it also gives you a deadline, because as a program committee chair, you have a member, you have to, kind of read them within a certain period of time. The online MOOC platforms these days have great courses in whichever topic that you want to brush up, update yourself on. So I do that too, Coursera courses or Udemy courses on whichever topic that I want to dig deeper into. So there are lots of opportunities. I think we just have to actually craft out certain amount of time in our day to stay on top of our job and our role and technology. And if we don't do that, then we'll become very stale very quickly and lose the credibility.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I would add to that is that people just starting into the industry right now are facing a very different reality than I faced when I came out. That was before fire was invented, of course. Some people really want to be specialists. Some people really want to be more general than that, although your ability to be a true generalist is very, very limited. You're going to have a microscopic layer of generalist skills if you're going to try to cover the entire gamut. But I think early in a person's career, it's important to dabble in different areas to try to get a sense, what is it that fulfills me? Do I want to specialize? I'm definitely more of a systems person and a language person. And I was able to recognize that early on, in part by the jobs that I really enjoyed and the jobs that, yeah, okay, whatever. And so then identifying that provides you with the scope of, this is the area that I want to stay current in. And I will rely on, I refer to them as my spies. If this person likes something in this area that I know I'm not following, but I might need to know about, I'll make a note of it. So if somebody then comes and asks me about, this aspect of NoSQL databases, I'll go check out what Pramod told me. But some people really do want to be generalists, and some people really do want to be specialists. And understanding what you are will then help you understand, what do I have to do to remain current, whichever shape person I decided to be.
Whatever shaped person I decide to be. Wonderful answer. And a final question, which has been asked in various flavors by our audience as they were registering and also now. What would you say is one downside and one advantage of being a woman executive? And before I get to my panelists, for my audiences, thank you so much for being with us. And of course, we'll get the answer to this very important question from our panelists as well. However, I do have a request to you. I'm sending a link to a feedback form. It's on the chat right now. It's a very short form, just 2 minutes. I know it's 2 minutes because I made it, but that will really help me and my team figure out how the sessions are going, which topics are we covering that are of interest to you, what are the future topics that we can cover that you might want to have discussions on. So please, please, please do take those 2 minutes and fill out the feedback form. All right, back to the question. One advantage and one downside of being a women executive. Anyone who would like to start?
I'll just add that, being a female executive, especially in tech, because there are fewer of us, is that you're always kind of being looked at, or as a role model, you're in the light. And so you have to remember that, you might even be having a bad day one day, but, your signals, your attributes, your behaviors are being watched, probably more so than you would be if you were a man. I would say on the positive side, whether you're a woman or not, being in a leadership position where you have the ability to support ideas, enable teams to get to that next level, to achieve great success as part of a group, is very, very rewarding.
Yeah, well said, Janice. I think in general, these days, there is a lot of focus in the industry on bringing up the pipeline for women in technology, and companies are doing, quite a bit of work to bring up those that are in the company, to elevate them to the higher ranks. So there is a lot of good things that are going on in the industry now, and that clearly, as Janice, you said, you have to be really, you're always being watched, especially if you're a leader. And I feel that way too, that I have a higher responsibility now to watch everything that I say and to conduct myself in an utmost dignified manner in every conversation, and be so well prepared because people are looking up to me, and I cannot let them down. So that kind of puts a lot of preparation and pressure on you. But that's fine, and that's something that we should do more of. I think as women leaders, we tend to bring empathy a little bit more into our jobs. We lead teams with empathy and show that personal care, I feel. And again, I don't want to, kind of generalize things here. I think everybody can do that, not just male or female, but probably females do a little bit more of that, which is great, because that brings more diversity of thought and cultivates a team culture that is a lot more vibrant and open to ideas, and people feel more homely in the teams that they're working in, I would say.
Well, I'm going to be a little contrarian, because to some extent, I think it's an advantage that we're in the spotlight, because that means people do notice what we are doing, and sometimes it is easier to stand out. Now, I do acknowledge the downside that one misstep and you've condemned half of the world's population to being seen as an incompetent. But I kind of see that as an upside. The downside is that nagging feeling that you always have to do so much more. That if you want to be seen as the equivalent of an average man, you have to be well above average, and if you want to be considered exceptional, you have to be just off the charts. And that can weigh on you if you let it. But that is the downside. And unfortunately, I've seen that play out often enough throughout my career that I believe it's true.
Thank you so much for being with us for the last hour and a half, Rebecca, Janice, Rama. I know you are extremely busy individuals, leaders, so I really, really appreciate your time volunteering with us and having this discussion. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for being with us. Please do fill out that feedback form. That will inform me what topics to cover in the future, what speakers to reach out to in the future. And I will see you all in our next Celebrating Technology Leaders session. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bushra.
Thanks, everybody.
It's been wonderful
Thanks, Bushra.
talking to the rest of the panelists, and you've conducted the session so well. Thank you so much.
Well said.
Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.